Hi, my name is Susie, and this is going to be my attempt to tell you my experiences. I've written it down many times over and over and over again, but I've had some requests to do a video, so this is my attempt, and I'm going to give it my best shot. I was born in Colorado, um, 1966, this lifetime at least. Um, I was raised Catholic. I had many ups and downs in my life, much of what I don't remember now, and we'll get to that later. I guess I'd get right to the point because it's really hard otherwise not to. It was, I believe, in 2003. The time frame is real hard, and I've tried very hard to track down the time frame, but this time it's to no avail that I have been able to. It was 2003. I worked for a very large company in the United States. So it was a fast food chain. I was a division manager. I had always been a kind of person that if I didn't have change in my life, if I didn't have something to intrigue me, if it became boring, then I needed to find new things to do. I was approached by another very large company and recruited into their company to do division management for their restaurant chain. Again, it was fast food. I had 20 something years experience in this and I was very good at what I did. I had been on the job about 3 days. I was driving down the road and on the highway, and I got off the off ramp, which was very near to the restaurant that I needed to be at. I took a yield that was required off the off ramp before merging into traffic going the opposite direction. There was oncoming traffic, and quite a bit for that time of day. It usually wasn't that busy at that time of day, and I believe it was around noon. Um, I was stopped at the yield because of the oncoming traffic, as I said, and then I hear this honk behind me, this very loud, startling honk, which usually honks didn't bother me, noises didn't bother me um, at that time. So I slammed on the gas, thinking I needed to get out of the way. I looked over to my left, and here comes more oncoming traffic, and I hear all of a sudden, stop. I literally hear it, so I stop. I slammed on my brake, and it was all within, I couldn't even say a matter of seconds that this all consisted of. And all of a sudden, I feel this huge impact behind me, almost like a freight train hit my car. I thought, wow, this is unbelievable. I just got hit. And then all of a sudden, things changed. I So much happened simultaneously. To tell it as it happened is really hard because I have to try to tell it like it is happening simultaneously, and that's really hard to do, seeing that we have timelines in what I call human world. So as I get hit, I also hear that I can't go into oncoming traffic because it's not written for anybody else to be involved in this accident to the degree that I am, and I needed to prevent that. That was really important. So I'm navigating my car out of the traffic because it was actually pushed into traffic. And at the same time, I get these overwhelming feelings. I get a feeling of, oh, wow, it's time. This is what happens when we die. I'm going to die. I wasn't scared. I wasn't afraid. I didn't feel alone. Even though I was all by myself in my car, my husband wasn't with me, my kids weren't with me. None of that mattered. I didn't feel afraid. I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel scared. It was just the way it was supposed to be. I continued on my path to get out of the car or out of the line of traffic, and it seemed like I just was all of a sudden not there. But I was there. I was still present, but not present. I was navigating. Some people call that an out of body experience, but as I get into the story, I'll tell you why I call it a near death experience. Um, I was really at peace. The most peaceful feeling I've ever felt in my entire life. Um, when somebody dies and they say they're at peace, that's literally what happens. They're at peace. I can't explain it. I can't even begin to give you an example of what it's like. I've never ever felt it in my life. I felt it many times since then because that feeling's never gone away. But before that, I'd never ever felt that peacefulness. I could all of a sudden see the car that I was driving. I could see me driving the car, my body. Um, there was no pain. I knew that I was hurt, that I'd been hit, but there was no pain whatsoever. I could see the cars around me. I could see the road. I could hear people thinking. Especially the guy who hit me, I could hear him going, oh my God, what have I done? Oh my God. Um, my sensories were just so blown out of proportion that I couldn't even imagine. Throughout the video, I'm going to try to put some clips in here to show you some examples of what I'm trying to say, at least as close as I can, so that maybe you can get some idea. Again, I don't think I can ever relate this story in the same realm that I had it, but I'm going to come as close as I can. All of a sudden, it shifted. And when I mean shifted like a movie, where you're in a scene and then all of a sudden you're shifted to another scene. Although I could still feel the scene behind me, I was not concentrating on that scene. Although I was still in that scene behind me, it was not of importance at the time. There's a light. Although I don't like calling it a light like most people do. I can't even think of a word for it, but it's warm. It's bright, but not bright like the sun, but it illuminates. It's warm, like a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's full of love. Love that I can only describe as a mother takes her child to her chest for the first time. That unconditional, protective, nurturing love that is more than I can even express. So that's as far as I can get with in regards to expressing it to you. I'm traveling through this light, through it and to it. And I know that sounds really weird, but I'm in it, but I'm getting closer to it. Um, and again, it's the feelings. I'm in the love. I'm getting closer to the love. It's not increasing. It's not decreasing. It's just is. It's there. I then kind of find a tunnel like, but it's not a tunnel. Again, I think as humans who don't know how to express what they are, we come up with words that are familiar to us in order to express it. So the tunnel was not really a tunnel. There were no walls. It was more like a path, like you couldn't veer off that path. And within that path was the light, and at the end of the path was a deeper light, although the feelings were all mutually the same throughout the journey. And again, during this whole time, I'm simultaneously still sitting in my car, witnessing all this going on around me in my car. I get to the top of the light is the best way I can say it. It's kind of like what's that movie? Alice in Wonderland, where she comes the rabbit hole. It's like coming out of the rabbit hole. Um, and I get to the top of the rabbit hole, but when I look down the rabbit hole, I still can see everything. And I mean everything. I know I'm in a new place. It's a wonderful place. Oh, to even think of it now brings back those feelings that I cannot explain. It's the biggest bliss and peace I can even imagine. I'm looking down this rabbit hole, and I see what's going on still. I still see the streets, the cars, the peoples. And then I shift again. Again, still being where I'm standing, or hovering, or whatever you want to call it. Again, there's no human word. I'm still seeing the accident, and I'm getting another shift. So now I'm simultaneously seeing three things at one time. I'm looking down inside the garage of my home, and I see my husband, who I was married to at the time. We're no longer married, working in his workshop. He had a wood workshop. He's a carpenter by trade. And he's sitting at his bandsaw. And on that bandsaw, there's a screwdriver. You know, the kinds that are like a clear handle. They have orange and clear screwdriver, and it was a flathead. It was very distinctive. Well, everything's extremely distinctive. We talk about fine edges. Everything has edges, and everything is extremely defined when this happens. And I can remember seeing it instinctively, and then I'm all of a sudden standing there, hovering, floating, whatever you want to call it. So again, now I'm looking down the rabbit hole, and I'm looking at me standing next to my husband. I'm also looking at my husband, standing next to my husband, looking at him, and I'm also still in my car, witnessing what's going on with people. I'm also still standing up top of the rabbit hole, witnessing what's going on up there in heaven. So I'm simultaneously still everywhere at the same time. I remember thinking, this is cool. I can go see anybody I want, anytime. I can talk to them. I can communicate with them. I can live with them. I can be with them anywhere I want. But I knew that I had to go somewhere else. I had to be present somewhere else. That this had to go away for a minute. I was being called. That there was an agenda for me being here, and I needed to find out that agenda. I was being told, this is what happens. This is what you go through. This is what everybody goes through. And all of a sudden I shift. And when I shift this time, I shift out of everything. I no longer see the rabbit hole. I no longer see the car. I no longer see my husband. I no longer see that. I need to back up. When I was there with my husband, I had tried to have conversations with him. And I kept thinking, if you just opened up, if you just tried, you could hear me talk to you. You would know I'm standing here. And I just kept hoping and wishing and thinking, all you got to do is open up. And he was thinking. He was heavy in thought. He always was thinker. He thought about everything. He troubles on his mind constantly. Always this and that and this and that. What am I going to do about this? What am I going to do about that? How am I going to handle this? How am I going to handle that? And I remember I kind of giggled at him and thought, wow, you worry so much. You think you're worried now. Wait till you find out I'm dead. And I actually giggled at it because I thought it was kind of funny. So anyway, all of a sudden it then shifted. And I shifted back up to where I was, above the rabbit hole. Everything else disappeared from me. I then stood at the bottom. You know, I traveled from the rabbit hole to the bottom of a stairwell. And during my travel, and it's not really travel, and I can't explain it, it's like here and there, all of a sudden, like a time travel. You're like, boom, boom. But in the same instance, you feel yourself going in that direction, but because there's no time, there's no, you can't say I walked or I floated or it took from me this 10 minutes to get from here to there. It was all everything is simultaneously. So during my travel, which is simultaneously to the bottom of the stairs, I remember I've been here before. I'm glad I'm back. This is cool. And during my travel, I got to see a room. This room was full of scrolls. And I knew that I'd been in this room before, and I would be back to this room again. I knew every one of these scrolls by heart. I had studied them, I had read them, I had almost like a library, like a charting, like each person had a section, but each section belonged to everybody. Um, and there were secrets in these scrolls, secrets that were not told until your final destination. Also, I saw people. I saw trees. I saw lakes. I saw houses. I saw colors that are more vibrant. Then the blanket behind me is just dull. That's dull compared to the colors I saw. I was so glad to be home. I think about it now and it's like, well, you know how when you go on a vacation that you've waited so long for, and during your vacation you hustle and bustle and you get everything done. You go see all the tourist traps and you buy all the things you want to buy and you visit everything you planned on visiting. You have your itinerary and this is what you're going to do. Well, home was like coming home from that vacation. That life itself was a vacation, and we were coming home from it. And you know how when you get home from your vacation, you kind of walk in the front door and you just plop on your couch and say, "Oh, I'm so glad to be home to relax because that was so hard and so hustle and bustle and so fast and it was great and I loved every minute of it, but I'm glad to be home. I'm glad it's over. Until next time." That's what it felt like. I was glad to be home. Vacation was over. I'd be back, but vacation was over. So then I find myself at the bottom of these stairs. These stairs are white and they kind of curve. And I start climbing these stairs. And there's peoples and angels on both sides of the stairs. Not angels like we see in books with wings. And I can't really describe them, but you knew they were angels. They were angels. They were there. They were the choir. They weren't like the protectors. They were like the wish givers. They would grant your wishes. They would give you what you needed to give. They would set you on your path. They would direct you. They would guide you. They were always with you. Um, and they were just beautiful. So I started to ascend these stairs, and I kept going up. Pretty soon I passed my grandfather. I was so excited to see him. I loved my grandpa. And he was happy to see me, and he felt that bliss. And it's not an overexcitement of joy, like, oh my God, this is so cool. It's more like a peaceful joy. It's more like, this is cool. This is way neat. I'm so excited to finally be here. It's gentle. It's very gentle. I passed my grandfather. I passed my father. I passed my biological father. I got almost all the way to the top. And I said, I have 4 more stairs and I'm there. 4 more is all I got to make it to the top. And I couldn't go any further. I stopped. There were lots of people around. Every one of those people I knew. I knew them personally. They knew me personally, but I did not recognize any of them. The best way I can describe it was they were a part of me, but they weren't me. They were their own person, but we were all a part of each other. I look up, and there before me, behold, stood Jesus and his mother Mary. Now, up till now, everything was in a spirit form, or a light form, or a just their form. But when I looked at Jesus and his Mary, it was as though you're seeing me right now. They were in full form. Jesus was, oh, unbelievable. And I think today about how much I missed that love. When we love our kids, we love them with all that we can love. When we love our neighbors, when we love our friends, when we love our animals, the love is multiply that times 100,000 times. That's how much he loved me. No matter what, I couldn't do anything wrong to him, for him, with him, or in him. I couldn't do any wrong. I was perfect in his mind. The perfect child. I was his child. And then there was Mary. Oh, she loved. She loved her son like he loved me. I remember that specifically, how much she loved him, how much she was there to serve him. And I think now, I think back and think, Mary serves her son. That's her purpose. She's her son. It was almost like she was, if you go back to old English times and royalty, they had servants who were almost like family to them, but they were there for their royalty. They were there for them, to take care of them, whatever they needed. Their maids, or whatever you called them back then, was there for them. And that's what Mary was. She was there for us. She was there for me, and I could ask her. And I knew that no matter what I needed, if I asked Mary, she would always take it to her son. Always. that she was kind of like the gateway to her son if I ever needed one. But they were in full form. You didn't see through them. They weren't ghosts. They weren't spheres. They weren't any of that. They were real. And I often wonder if that's because in the history books, and that's what I call the Bible, and I don't mean to disrespect anybody, but to me, the Bibles are no more than what I'm doing right now. They're all of their own experiences put down in words. And so I call them history books because we all have a part of the Bible now. All of us that this happens to, we become a part of that history book, the history of God. It's like his diary, history book's diary. But the Bible to me is just so commercialized, I don't use that word. But I think back to what the prophets say and what they, now I do, that I came back and I thought so much of it. I think back and think, is that what they meant when they said that Jesus arose to the heavens? His body was not left behind. Is that what they meant when they said Mary was not left behind, that she was taken in full form? It's got to be. Because that's what they are. During this time, I can feel God. God is huge, huge. The only way I can think of it, explain it, is like a monster film, except he's not a monster. He's a great guy, except that he is this all so powerful Oz. And that's what it's like, the all so powerful Oz. I could feel him. I couldn't see him. I couldn't hear him, but I could feel him. And he was behind the gates. And I just knew I was going to get to see God someday. But today was not the day I'd get to see God. But someday, that's what we achieve for. That is the ultimate thing, is that we get to be with God, that we serve him as Jesus and Mary do, and all of his disciples and all of his angels, that's the ultimate goal. All these lifetimes that we go through, the ultimate goal is to be with God, to be his servant, to do what he created us to do. Not to go to work, not to have children. Although those things were meant for us to do, there's an ultimate goal. I also saw a house made of gold. And I looked at this house and I could feel it. I could feel people inside it. These people inside it were the most holiest people in the world. And when I think of that, I think of Mother Teresa. People who spent their whole life dedicated to God, wholeheartedly, not as in faking it, not as in pretending, but as in really from their hearts and their soul. They spent their life dedicated to God, that they were with him in this house, that they were there. When in the history books it says, I go before you to prepare a home for you, it's true. He does. There's homes for everybody. There's parks, there's benches, there's trees, everything. And he goes and he prepares it for us. Or he did. I wanted to go in. I wanted to go through the gates. I could see the children. There were no children on the stairs, but they were past the gates, playing, enjoying, having fun. That's when Jesus said to me, it's not your time. I begged. I said, what do you mean it's not my time? You can't take this away from me. Please. I begged and I begged and I begged. And you have to know that during these experiences, they're not talking to you. It's all telepathy. You hear what they're, I can't even explain it. It's not even hearing. It's just knowing what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're saying. You just know it. You know what what they're trying to tell you. And he said, you can't come. It's not your time. And I said, I have to come. I begged and I begged. I literally got on my knees and begged him, oh, Father, please let me stay. I don't want to go. He said, you can stay. But if you stay, the stair that you stay on is where you'll remain. Everybody comes to heaven on their own level, the level that they've earned. And this is the level you'll remain on. You come to study, you come to learn, you come to gain levels. I'm going to send you back so that you can gain those levels. You can gain these 4 stairs. I said, I'm okay. I'll stay where this stair is. I'm good with this. I can do this. I'll stay right here. Knowing the whole time I had a husband and children and family behind me, waiting for me, probably going to mourn me, very upset about me being gone. That didn't matter. It's not that I didn't care about them. I did. But I knew automatically that our lives were lessons. We go through what we go through because we need to go through it. No other reason. And once we learn those lessons and we end up going through it, then we get more lessons and we get more things. I learned that's what the scrolls were about. Those were our lives, the history books of each of us individually. And we had more than one scroll, many scrolls, some of us. Some of us few, some of us many, some of us I couldn't even count probably. But it didn't matter that I was leaving all that behind, that they were going to mourn me, that they were going to be upset, that my kids were going to have a hard time, because it was what they needed. It was their lesson. It's the scroll that they picked. And he said, I'm going to send you back because people's fate depends on you. Their lives depend on you. Not as in death or life, meaning their lessons. What they have to go through. You have to be present for them to be there in their lesson. If you're not there, they can't go through their lessons. Their lessons will be different. They'll take a different route. So you have to return. And I'm thinking the whole time, it's really not worth arguing with him about because it's already written. I'm going back. It doesn't change. Even though he said I could stay, I knew I wasn't going to. It was written. So he showed me some things. He showed me some things that were going to come up. Some things have come to pass. Some things haven't. Each of them I did not understand until they came to pass. So I continue to wait on what they are. He showed me my oldest daughter, who her name's Jerry Lynn. I have to tell you that my language is different now that I've come back because when we are born, we choose our names. Our parents or us as parents don't choose them. We might think we do, but actually we choose our own names. So when I say my child, Jerry Lynn, and I say I call her Jerry Lynn, really I learned that as odd as this is going to sound, we each have an original name. And we choose kind of like screenplay names in each lifetime. That was her screenplay name. He says, Jerry Lynn will be okay. She's going to go through some hard stuff, but she'll be okay. You won't have to be there for her. It will help with her lesson, but she'll still get the same. And remember, these are just knowing. The conversations don't take but seconds because you just see it all immediately. He said, but Sammy's lessons will change. Her life will be not what it's supposed to be. It will be unwritten. And we don't do the unwritten. We only do what is written. In order for her to do the written, you have to return. And I have been promised, and Jesus is saying this to me as though he's saying it, I have been promised that if you return, her fate will be sealed. She will be okay. I knew immediately it was time to go. I knew that we had to go back. I had to go back. I knew from the minute I started begging that Didn't matter what I said, felt, or inquired about. It's what was written. My near-death experience was written. Everything that had happened up to the point had written. Everything that was coming was written. Everybody I would run into was written. It's all written. So I returned, and it was gone. And I was sitting in my car, and there's blood gushing down my face. The pain was the most unbearable pain I ever had in my life, in my entire life. I never was clinically dead. I have no witnesses. It has changed my life forever. I believed in a God. I believed in an afterlife. I didn't give it any thought. I just figured, well, we'll figure it out when it happens. I didn't earn my way into heaven like some require it. I just thought, when it happens, it happens. I'll deal with it then, which I was really good about dealing at things when they came up, not as I needed to. Now my whole life is surrounded by God, Jesus, Mary, the afterlife, my lessons, what's written, who am I supposed to talk to, who am I supposed to change, who am I supposed to tell. My whole life is wrapped around this, and I couldn't be more grateful. My life has changed so much since that day in 2000, and I believe it was 2002 or 2003. One of the biggest changes, well, there's so many changes I can't even go through. But one of the changes is prior to my near-death experience, I don't have much memory of. I have some bits and pieces, but more than that, I don't remember. I don't remember my childhood. I don't remember events. I don't remember people's names. I don't remember streets I lived on. I don't remember sometimes the schools I go to, so on and so forth. But I remember everything since my near-death experience. My life has been complete. I've learned many lessons, and I've welcomed them all. My sensories have opened. I've always been very open to the spiritual world, as in being able to know, feel, and think things prior to my near-death experience. After my near-death experience, it has exploded. But that's another video. So, anyway, that's my experience. I'll continue on later, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Bye-bye.